Hello and welcome to AWS Made Easy. This is the show where we talk about all things AWS, about FinOps, about AI, our ever-expanding scope. My name's Stephen Barr.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Subramaniam, and welcome to another week. What's been happening, Stephen? What's been happening at your end?
Well, still digesting FinOps X, so it's great. I have this notepad of follow-ups to do that I wrote on the plane. This is a couple of pages, and so I'm working through all my emails of follow-ups. I think, let's see, I'm about 80% of the way through this.
That's pretty neat.
Connections I wanted to keep going, and just friends to check in with. You see someone and like, why in the world did I wait a whole year to reach out to this person? So promise myself I'll be better as a friend at reaching out to these people, because they're really, really great people there.
So, that's really awesome.
Yeah. How about you? How have you been?
Busy. There's been so much happening on the AI front. I've been neck deep in all of that. We've got some really amazing new workflows that we've been kind of leveraging with AI that have allowed us to go create new apps, deploy stuff. We've been doing a ton of stuff on AI-generated video and video content kind of stuff. So a lot of new stuff, kind of pushing the limits of what we can do with AI right now. So it's a lot of fun. It's an incredible amount of fun stuff that we're working on right now.
Oh, good. Awesome. Well, I think we should jump in and do some good old reviews. It's been a little bit since we've done one of those. We're talking about a neat announcement that I just saw here. This is, well, actually, I'll let me put this on screen here. Let's present.
I think also, I was just thinking about this. We should come up with a different name. Earlier, we used to do X number of clouds. And now it's more than clouds. It's cloud AI and a bunch of other FinOps stuff. So
okay, so we need a new metric.
Correct.
How many tokens?
Yeah, we love suggestions. We love your inputs. Everyone in the audience, let us know what you want us to use. Okay, let's dive right into this one. So AWS Compute Optimizer now identifies idle EC2 autoscaling groups with GPU instances.
Now that whole sentence just sounds expensive. Auto-scaling and GPU is a great way to burn through a lot of money.
Yeah, right? That's absolutely right.
And especially if you have a way to automatically increase the amount of GPUs that you're using. One of the issues with ASGs, as far as I know, sometimes if you don't configure them right, they might not scale back down.
Correct. And in fact, it's easy to set up the scaling up. It's a lot harder to scale back down because you really have to think through the metrics and what triggers a scale down. It's not usually the same as how things scale up, because you might have some residual services, residual queries. You don't want all of that to kind of be washed away when a machine goes down. So you have to think through a scale down process a lot more than you have to think about the scale up. So yes, this can add up to a ton of money. And the fact that now you have identification of EC2 idle instances with GPU instances on them, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so looking at the article content, it's really neat. It's available everywhere right away. It's also, there's recommendations in the cost optimization hub. And of course, just check out Compute Optimizer. They have the same issue that we do in terms of their name. Their scope is expanding. It's not just compute. They're optimizing lots of different things.
Correct.
Compute Optimizers. This is neat. This can potentially save you a lot of money. Right? You definitely want to know.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to highlight on LinkedIn. Let me put it on this tab. This was announced by Wenyan Huang. So this is neat. This way, you have to get on LinkedIn, follow the AWS community there, follow Rahul and I. There's great discussion, great details. And what I like about this is, look, you can see the actual people behind some of this. And lots of these people we know. We know Letien, we know Rick, we know Bowen. The commentary, you can see the discussion. It's really neat because it kind of puts this human face on how these things get developed. And just as a funny note, I put this on my LinkedIn. I said, we've always worried about GPU pricing. And this is if you remember this, a Voodoo 5. Which was a big deal.
Ages ago. It was a very big deal when these graphics processors came out. I'm assuming like 98, 99.
Exactly. That is
around
exactly
that
right.
period.
And it's funny, I had great discussions. Rick recognized that card from just the picture of it. Just going back about, GPUs has always been a big deal, especially if you're a gamer. This is, just some fun bit of history. And
Right.
this was powered by an NVIDIA. No, this was a Voodoo, but the card that this replaced was, I had the Viper V770, and that was powered by a NVIDIA Riva TNT2 that had 4 megabytes of video RAM.
I remember my first graphics one had 2 megabytes of RAM on it, and that was a big deal. It cost a bomb. And things haven't changed very much except the sheer capacity and compute power of those GPUs now.
Well, the predecessor to this, the Voodoo 1, it was neat because it was a pass-through card. So you had an onboard VGA that did your 2D, and you actually plugged the VGA into the Voodoo card, VGA input, and then it had a VGA output.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
It was wild.
Yeah, times have changed a lot. But again, pricing is really, really important, and costs are very important. The fact that you can have idle GPUs detected is really neat. I think I'm going to give this. This is the Voodoo one.
Yeah, so you have the input 3D and the output 3D. It was such a weird design, but pretty cool. All right, how do we rate this one? Going back,
I definitely say simplifies.
Yes,
anything that lets you act on something important without having to do anything is simplifies. And I'm going to give this a 4. A 4 clouds.
There we go. 4 clouds for now, and a simplifies. The 4 clouds and a simplifies for AWS Compute Optimizer now identifies idle EC2 autoscaling groups. That is really neat. It would be neat to know how long, and I'm sure it's all in the documentation, how long it takes to be idle, how much it would save you.
Correct.
What are the situations which cause it to be idle? But I'm sure that that's forthcoming. Exactly. And we are going to implement this one in CloudFix. We love Compute Optimizer. We will implement this one in CloudFix so we can, surface these recommendations as part of the CloudFix dashboard.
Exactly.
Okay.
What's next?
Okay, this one is, I wonder if we should have a little, like a bugle for this one. A sad bugle. I'll edit that in. We have a sad bugle music. There are a few services that are closing and reaching end of support. A handful of these. Okay, TimeStream for live analytics, Pinpoint, IQ, IoT Analytics, IoT Events, SimSpace Weaver, Panorama, Inspector Classic, Connect Voice ID, and DMS Fleet Advisor.
I actually used to love Pinpoint and Panorama. I was a huge fan of Panorama. Pinpoint was, of course, used for marketing, and Panorama, we actually had the team also on this podcast or this live stream in the past. Panorama was great because it did vision-based analytics on your webcam data. And some of the use cases that they were working on in the healthcare industry were absolutely stunning. Like, for example, in a room, when you have a patient, imagine being able to predict whether the patient is going to fall from their bed or not. Or, a scenario where you can, attend to things, without actually physically being there. You get alerted when, say, a truck comes into your warehouse, or you get alerted when a certain kind of action happens, or if safety norms are flouted at a construction site. All of those things you could detect automatically using these models that were available in Panorama with a very simple deploy dashboard.
I saw this paper once. This was back when I was in healthcare, and they put a camera above the sink in a patient room in a hospital just to see, because, by protocol, you wash your hands on the way out, and then you go to the next patient, you wash your hands again on the way in. But they were counting how many times that actually happened. I'll ask Perplexity to see if I can find it.
Yeah. So I'm kind of sad to see that the service is no longer going to be supported, but the devices are all there. And with the new NVIDIA devices, you should be able to do a lot more stuff. And you can always connect it to SageMaker, take the SageMaker models, deploy them on these devices, and achieve the same outcomes. But I think the managed service that was available was actually pretty neat. It was very beautifully crafted. And it was actually run by so this entire project was actually run by, was it Lab 42 or Lab 49? Something like that. There's a lab that, Amazon lab that actually specifically built and designed the product and the hardware and the software stack that went with it. Or was it Lab 47? It was something like that. Just try to check out.
Having a look. Okay, well, it's neat that they are offering an off-ramp to this. Yeah, and then they're saying, okay, you can use SageMaker. The Panorama, the great thing about it was local, right? There was local bit of hardware.
Everything was local. And the reason for that is because when you have webcam data and stuff like that, let's say you had a fleet of 10 webcams that you were trying to analyze, streaming all of that data into the internet to do real-time analytics is just way too expensive, and the latencies are a problem as well. So this solves the problem of latency.
And in some places you just don't have the upload bandwidth.
Exactly. Particularly if it's a remote location and stuff like that, this just helps you solve all of those problems by just putting in a small little box right there. You can connect all your IP cameras to it. And I think one box would handle about 4 or 5 different webcams at a time. And you could just chain a whole bunch of these boxes together and manage them as a fleet.
Yeah. Looking at, they offer a replacement also by NVIDIA with similar hardware. They point you to these NVIDIA boxes that, I think this is the same basis of the Panorama, right? It was the same hardware.
Yep. Correct.
Okay. Well, interesting decision to shut down Panorama. They have lots of different code. Let's share this tab. Lots of different code. You can use SageMaker, computer vision algorithm, SageMaker Jumpstart. So if you're not using Panorama, you can't start as of now. But if you are using it, you have about a year. And up until that point, you have to find some other way to do it. So
I think there are tons of options. And with the new NVIDIA boxes that are coming out later this year, I think this would be, you should get far more capacity on a single box, far more power, and you could run any of these models on it. So super exciting time.
Let's look at what else they are any other ones that we need to think about. Let's see, SimSpace Weaver. I'm not sure what that is.
I think that is for the gaming or some simulation setup. I'm not sure. Or was this the digital twin product?
Let's have a look.
Let's see.
SimSpace Weaver. Oh, they're not even saying what it is in the end. Okay, transitioning to AWS Batch to run containerized simulations. That's right. Okay, the SimSpace Weaver is, okay. Like if you had a digital twin that you wanted to run on lots and lots of different parameterizations, I'd imagine that there's not a lot of people are using it. But now here's some other ways to.
That's probably the reason why they're shutting it down.
Yeah, that's a very bespoke use case.
Correct. Okay. And then you have Amazon Connect Voice ID. You've got Amazon Inspector Classic. I think Amazon Inspector Classic, I mean, with all the other tools that are now available, it's probably, I don't know of anybody who uses it anymore. So it kind of makes sense. And then AWS Private 5G. Oh, they're shutting that one down.
That was a neat idea. The idea that you could have I think the idea was if you had a factory and you, rather than building out a huge Wi-Fi network, you can have everything on 5G, and you can have a private 5G network and
connect all of your devices to it. Yeah. I think when it comes to that kind of a setup, like a factory setup, the big idea over here was that if you had devices that needed massive bandwidth to actually connect and share data, then a 5G network makes a lot of sense. But I think for the large part, if you had something like LoRaWAN, it has low bandwidth. It's not got as much as high bandwidth as 5G, but relatively low bandwidth that works for most devices that are just sharing IoT or status information. LoRaWAN has generally picked up tremendously to try and bridge that gap. So I think 5G is a little bit of an overkill in those scenarios, but definitely a very interesting idea.
And then data sync discovery. I don't know what that one is.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure. Got to check this one out. Let's see.
Migrating on-prem data to AWS.
Interesting.
Let's yeah, it looks like something that could be.
It collects all the
easily
data
replaced.
about your on-premise setup. Yep. Correct. Okay. So I don't know if I'm going to rate this one. Good that they've given enough notice. So we'd probably give it a 4. Kind of makes sense in terms of an announcement. I don't think I could rate it simplifies or otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So for this whole deprecation announcement, we were going to give it a 4. Yeah, and I guess a neutral. So not sure.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think we've got one more article I want. Oh, okay. Put this one on screen. This is a nice, refreshing one. Price reductions for SageMaker AI GPU accelerated instances. This was announced just a couple of days ago. So just straight out price reduction up to 45% for the P4 and P5 instance types.
That's pretty awesome. Anyone running tons of, GPU instances would really benefit from this.
And on-demand and savings plans, all regions. That's pretty neat. Also reduced flat price on flexible training plans on SageMaker HyperPod. This is great. This is exactly what you want to see. Just price reduction. Right. No changes need to make. It just gets 45% cheaper.
Exactly. This is simplified, and I'd give this a 5. I don't know whether you've given a 5 before, but I haven't seen a regular price reduction like this since the very early days of Amazon. I don't know if you remember, but in the early days of AWS, the prices on EC2 instances would reduce by 10 to 15% every year on year. They just keep reducing the instance prices. And then I think somewhere around 2014, 2015, they just completely stopped it. Like I don't think I've seen one in 10 years now. So this is very refreshing and good to see.
Yeah, not going to complain about this one at all.
Right.
You really can't. I mean, how can you make it? Yeah, I don't know what you could possibly complain about that one.
Correct. I really wonder about those all upfront and partial upfront payment plans. What happens to those? Because you would have paid them based on a certain preset pricing on these instances. If you paid all upfront, what happens to the delta now? The prices are reduced by 45%.
Let's have a closer look at the article. It did say pricing reduction applies to on-demand and to savings plan purchases effective after June 16th.
After June 16th. Okay, so that's just 2 days ago. So if you had bought a savings plan, you don't get a benefit from it.
If you bought it on June 15th.
Yes.
That
feels a little sad. Like
that would be worth an email to your TAM.
Yeah. Imagine a 3-year commit that you made earlier this month. You're stuck with that pricing for the next 3 years. Okay. This is kind of why I always, say those kind of long-term commitments should literally be your very last resort, because there's just so much stuff that's coming down the pipeline which you have no visibility about. So making those kind of commitments is just going to jam you into a corner.
If YouTube doesn't ban it, I'll try and sneak in an Alanis Morissette song here. I bought this.
Isn't it ironic?
Yes, exactly. All right. If I get a copyright strike, I was thinking it. Okay. But that's an old song at this point.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah, that you wouldn't want to get locked into it. I mean, not all of us can be like DHH and have this plan where apparently your compute needs years into the future.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, things like this, I'm pretty sure it's somebody is, regretting their decision to do a 3-year savings plan or a reserved instance thing just in the last few months. 45% price reduction is huge. And imagine that they could have reduced their overall cost by that much. Yeah. I don't want to be in that position.
What if, I don't know, Cerebrus comes out with an instance, like a special AI processor that gets into EC2 and then everyone switches to that? I mean, correct. That's totally possible in a 3-year time horizon.
Exactly. I mean, things are changing every 6 months, forget 3 years. So more likely than not that, some of this has already changed.
Well, let's have a look at our last one here. All right, extend Amazon Q Developer IDE plugins with MCP tools. I think we need to do an entire episode on Q Developer with MCP. All right.
I agree. I think let's keep an episode dedicated to just this and look at how awesome this gets.
Yeah, definitely. Now it's hard to find the sweet spot with MCP. I think we're still exploring exactly, right? Do you have one tool? Do you have 50 tools? How should it correspond to your API? Is it higher level? Is it one-to-one correspondence?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of, I think we should flesh this out in that episode. All right. So Amazon Q Developer for MCP. So I guess you could augment your Q Developer experience with knowledge bases, with testing frameworks that are unique to your organization.
Correct.
Whatever you want.
I'm just going to put it out there that I'm not a fan of a one-to-one mapping of an MCP tool to an API call. But if you object to that, please let us know. We'd love a good argument and a good debate when we cover this in the next episode.
I do love, I'm using a WordPress MCP, which I think goes to the other extreme, which is like, it has discover function or discover endpoints and call endpoints. It's literally just two. And everything is generalized to the call endpoint function. So I think
I agree. And in fact, like another classic example, even though it may not be quite the extreme that you just mentioned, if you look at Gmail's endpoints, right? Gmail's endpoints they literally don't have a to, a from, a CC, or a BCC. They don't have a body object. They don't have they don't have any of this stuff. And funnily, the way you have to actually set up an email is with a whole bunch of parameters that you set into another object. And it's not the most obvious. And there are probably 40 other parameters that are related to how the email gets delivered. But the most common 5 things that you use are nowhere in the standard attributes. They are buried inside another object that you have to construct and then ship out.
That's why you want to use something like JMap by Fastmail, a much simpler protocol if you want to automate email. I think, Gmail API is definitely pretty obtuse. Okay, we've got one more article. I think it just shares an interesting statistic. Apparently, as of a couple of days ago, on the AWS Marketplace, they've calculated total contract value exceeds $1 billion.
That's pretty impressive. That's, AWS Marketplace is the easiest place for folks to get started with services that are deployed and running on AWS, particularly from third parties. And the fact that that's now grown to $1 billion market is pretty impressive.
Well, it's one thing that's really neat about it from a operational point of view. When you're on the selling side of SaaS and you're trying to sell to a company, they know they have to go through another procurement. You're yet another vendor on their list, and you have to check all the boxes.
Yeah.
But if you're on Marketplace, that path is greased for you.
Exactly. And it just shows that all the purchases literally just show up as a line item for you in your AWS bill, which is pretty awesome. So as long as you have a good FinOps practice and you can attribute those costs accordingly, it becomes relatively easy to kind of get through the process. And it's one of the reasons why Cloudfix also picked the marketplace as one of the easiest ways to kind of get started with Cloudfix. It's so simple. A few clicks and you're done with your contract. And Cloudfix also just shows up as a simple line item in your AWS bill.
Yeah, it is doing it the easy way. And
Correct.
Yeah. So AWS Marketplace, 20,000 listings across 70 categories. This is pretty neat. More than 99% of the top 1,000 AWS customers had at least one active Marketplace subscription.
Correct.
So
that's pretty awesome.
This is a neat article. Wow. Okay, they're saying 25 transactions over $1 million on Marketplace. Okay, this is a good article. I'll post the link to it in the video. This is everything for today. So we've got some really great guests coming up. We've got Basil Fatin. We've had him on the show before. He's got some neat announcements he's going to share with us. We've got Rick Oakes and Bowen Wang trying to get the date settled, but that's coming up soon. A few of the FinOps folks, that was part of my follow-ups, is future AWS Made Easy episodes. We've got a lot of great FinOps discussions that are brewing and will be out shortly. We've got Matt Burke. We're planning an episode with him, so really looking forward to all those.
Likewise.
It's exciting.
Awesome.
Well, make sure to follow us if you haven't already. Ask us any questions, and we will be sure to answer them in an upcoming episode. Until then, see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.